Hi, and welcome to this webinar. My name is Rachael, and I'm delighted to present this short webinar as part of the RainbowFam project, an Erasmus Plus funded initiative bringing together partners from the Netherlands, Cyprus, and Italy. And today we'll explore the part of our resource guide that we made that focuses on the emotional challenges faced by LGBTQIA plus or queer individuals, and especially how we as professionals can better support them and their families. And this session is designed specifically for you, therapists, social workers, counselors, and mental health practitioners, people who work directly with queer individuals and their families. So, before we dive really into the emotional challenges, let's take a look at the current reality across Europe. Because despite progress in legal recognition and visibility, queer individuals continue to face pervasive discrimination, social exclusion, and structural inequalities. And for queer youth, especially, this translates to family rejection, to social isolation, and significantly heightened risk of anxiety, depression, and suicidal ideation. So access to gender affirming care remains uneven. Trans minors face particular obstacles, from denied access to puberty blockers in countries like Italy and France to bureaucratic delays and institutional hostility in schools. And perhaps the most concerning is the surge in anti LGBTQIA rhetoric, particularly transphobic discourse, driven by far right movements and amplified through media. And this toxic climate legitimizes exclusionary ideologies and fuels an alarming increase in bias motivated violence. And as professionals, it's important for us to understand that the emotional challenges that we discuss here in this webinar are not isolated phenomena. They are a direct result of these systemic failures. So, now let's explore the internal emotional landscape that many queer individuals navigate. It's really crucial to understand that these emotions are not inherent to queer identity itself, but rather to how society responds to it. Isolation is often the first emotion that we encounter. This arises when the individuals lack access to safe, affirming communities or when they face rejection from their families. And for those people that have intersectional identities, like people of color or neurodivergent people or disabled people, this isolation compounds. And they may struggle to find spaces that understand their full, multifaceted experience. Invisibility is another profound challenge. When queer people don't see themselves reflected in media, public life, or even local programming, it enforces feelings of marginalization. And positive, diverse, and accurate portrayals, especially of non binary, asexual, and Black queer individuals, can help affirm self worth and normalize the full spectrum of experiences. And then there's guilt, particularly guilt toward family members. There are individuals that feel responsible for the discomfort or the social judgment their family experiences because of their identity. Others carry guilt for not meeting family expectations or creating perceived division. And this is especially heightened in communities where family loyalty and conformity are strongly emphasized. And without access to affirming conversations or supporting networks, these feelings become internalized and deeply, deeply distressing. So, now let's talk about knowledge and information, or rather, the lack of it. Because misinformation and inadequate knowledge continue to shape how queer identities are perceived and treated in society, but particularly in healthcare settings. Many healthcare professionals simply lack the education or training necessary to provide affirming and competent care. Medical education still inadequately addresses queer health needs, leading to treatment delays, poor mental health outcomes, and repeated invalidation of clients. And in mental health services specifically, we see clients reduced to their LGBTQIA plus identity or treated as case studies. And this undermines trust and it deters many from seeking help when they need it the most. And non binary individuals, queer identities in general, but non binary individuals particularly face unique challenges here because they often experience what we call the burden of education, constantly having to explain their identity, which demands significant emotional and cognitive labor. In some cultures with highly gendered languages like Italian, these challenges are further compounded. And as professionals, it's important that we realize that our clients shouldn't bear the responsibility of educating us. It's our job to educate ourselves, to seek supervision, and to engage with the community to build our competence. And to better understand some of the challenges, I would like to introduce the minority stress model. And this model helps explain the health disparities experienced by marginalized groups and emphasizing that these challenges result from stigma, from discrimination, and from social exclusion, and not from the identities themselves. And the model distinguishes between two types of stressors. You have the distal stressors, they are external events like violence, microaggressions, rejection from family or from institutions, and also proximal stressors, and they are internal. So, internalized stigma, fear of discrimination, and fear of our identity concealment, not telling people who you are. And for transgender and non binary individuals, cisnormativity and transnegativity further exacerbate these stressors, often leading to anxiety, depression, and social isolation. And understanding this framework helps us recognize that when we support queer clients, we are not fixing them. We're just helping them to navigate a world that has failed to accept them. And now let's discuss the most powerful protective factor that we can influence: family acceptance, for especially for the counselors who work with families. Now, research from the Family Acceptance Project is very clear. Queer youth with supportive families are significantly less likely to experience depression, anxiety, self harm, and suicidal ideation. But here's what's crucial for us to understand: acceptance is not a passive act of agreement, it's an active, ongoing process rooted in love, listening, and genuine connection. As professionals, we play a key role in helping families create environments where queer members of the family feel safe and accepted. And this means, first, encouraging open dialogue. Parents need to listen actively and validate their child's experiences without judgment. Simple phrases like, I love you for who you are, and I want to understand your experiences better, can be transformative. Second, never dismiss concerns as just a phase. This invalidates identity and damages trust. Also, addressing societal and familiar pressures compassionately. Families face their own stigma and internalized biases, and we need to help them to navigate these challenges constructively, offering practical strategies like joining support groups or connecting with affirming communities in their region. And it's also vital to connect families with peer support groups, especially for parents of trans, non binary, and intersex children. These spaces provide solidarity, shared experiences, and collective wisdom that can significantly reduce isolation and stress. And remember, in cases where youth are closeted due to anticipated rejection, our intervention should focus not on changing the youth, but on shifting adult attitudes and their beliefs, as far as we can, of course, as far as we have an influence on that. And let's be clear about what non supportive behavior looks like, because recognizing this is essential for effective intervention. Non supportive behaviors include rejecting a youth's chosen name or their pronouns, or denying their orientation or gender identity, or enforcing conformity to cisnormative and heteronormative standards, but also isolating them from supportive peers and communities. And these reactions often stem from fear, misinformation, or deeply rooted cultural beliefs. But we must understand invalidation of a child's or adolescent's identity may constitute emotional abuse and must be addressed with the same gravity as other forms of harm. The more hostile the environment, the more difficult it becomes for family to provide affirming care. And this is why we, as professionals, must address these structural dimensions. We must promote inclusive narratives and facilitate connections between families and supportive communities. Encourage parents to view their child's identity as part of the broad spectrum of human diversity. And this perspective shift can lead to more authentic relationships and healthier developmental outcomes for everyone involved. So, what does this mean for your day to day practice? How do you build an affirming practice? Now, first, we build a strong therapeutic alliance with queer clients, and that requires offering a genuinely safe space where clients feel heard and respected, and recognizing the historical pathologization of queer identities and approaching therapy without a savior mentality. It's about being open to continuous learning and seeking supervision or collaboration with queer colleagues. And also, when working with families, help them understand that their actions can shape their loved one's sense of safety and belonging. Frame acceptance as providing love and understanding, not necessarily agreement with every aspect, but unconditional support for the person. And third, be mindful of your own positioning. For some queer therapists, strategic self disclosure can be powerful, particularly when working with closeted clients or minors. It can make you seem less institutional and more relatable. Also, always approach from an intersectional lens. Recognize that experiences vary dramatically based on race, on class, on disability, on immigration status, on so many factors. Don't treat LGBTQIA plus identities as monolithic. And finally, remember the principle of do no harm. And this means actively working to dismantle cisnormativity and heteronormativity in your practice, not just avoiding overtly discriminatory language. So, moving forward, as we conclude, I want to leave you with this. Creating affirming, inclusive, and emotionally safe environments is not just about intent, it's about informed and sustained action. It's about listening to those in the margins, designing systems that center their realities, and dismantling barriers that have too long gone unexamined. The emotional challenges that we've discussed today, isolation, invisibility, guilt, the impact of misinformation, are not inevitable. They are the product of systems that we can change. And as mental health professionals and family counselors, you are uniquely positioned to make that change. Whether through direct therapeutic work, through family education, or broader advocacy, your role is critical. And the Rainbow Resource Guide provides additional tools, concrete strategies, and detailed guidance to support your work. And I encourage you to really explore it and share it with colleagues. I'll share the link to it somewhere here around this video. So thank you for your time and your commitment to this vital work. And together we can create a world where every queer individual and their family can thrive.